Okay, you're on.
Am I audible? Do I sound like you can hear me clearly?
Why can't you see me?
I can't see you too well, but I can hear you.
Wave your hand. Yes, I see you move. I see you move. It worked.
Yay!
Nobody moved. Nobody moved from wherever they are. Everybody, all of you are in the right place.
Hi, welcome to take 15 of Stories with Shastri. I have NIKITA NAIKNAVARE coming on board today. Nikita is the founder of Lost the Plot. And yeah, we're going to discuss screening, licensing, movies, lots of fun stuff. And Eid Mubarak, by the way, to those of you who are celebrating. And I'm just going to wait for her to come on board and we can take it forward. I just made a great meal of shakshaka today, so I'm very happy. I've had a very long day. I hope Nikita is doing well, and we're just waiting for her to see where she is. We're gonna see where she is because I don't see if she can. I don't see her here. So I hope all of you are healthy. I hope all of you are staying sane. I hope all of you are doing things for yourself and also realizing that sometimes you need to, just chill. It's okay. Stuff happens. So I think I see her here, and I am going to add Nikita to. I need to open my list of questions for her by the time she gets added. Hi,
Hey.
how are you doing? Tell me how was your day today?
I'm doing good. Actually, I had a very, very chilled out day. I don't know. I hope Mondays like this continue, even in the post lockdown.
Yeah.
But
Oh
yeah,
yeah.
I had a pretty chill day. We ordered a vinyl player, so we're just testing that out.
Hmm. Okay.
So, yeah.
So for our listeners, I sorry, you were saying something. I thought you stopped and I didn't realize. Go on.
No. I was just telling you about my day. It's fine. we can
Tell me.
continue.
No, tell me.
No, I mean it was a pretty chill day, very very un Monday like, and we got a vinyl player, so I'm pretty excited about that.
Oh, you said vinyl player. I thought you
Yeah,
said
what did you know?
wine and then you stopped because you were like,
Oh,
oh no. And that's why I said,
no,
okay, cool, let me ease the
some
tension.
some wine with this vinyl player would be pretty amazing, but no such luck
Yeah,
in
dude, vinyl player
Bombay.
sounds cool. But
Yeah,
vinyl
yeah,
player sounds so cool.
yeah. Ooh,
That's
Aditya
pretty
saying
cool.
hi. Hi, Adi.
So, one thing I want our listeners to know is a little bit about you and about Lost the Plot.
Okay, what do you want me to start with?
Tell us about you. Start with you.
Mm. Well, I don't know. There's not like, you know what? Like we talked on the phone that day. I was thinking about this. That the last like 5 or 6 years that Lost the Plot has been the center of my life. It really has been that. It's been like very much the center of my life. Um, so sometimes it's kind of difficult to think about like, oh yeah, what else have I done the last 4 5 years? But about me, I grew up in Pune. I'm
Hmm.
from Pune, just like you. And yeah,
It's a
my
we're a cult, I think.
I guess.
Hmm.
um, my folks kind of moved. So my folks are from Bombay. They moved to Pune after they got married, and that's where we grew up. And had like a regular, I don't know, West Pune Deccan childhood, I guess. I didn't get out of Pune for much before. All Shivajinagar
Yeah.
people will know what that is. But yeah, it was a pretty regular Pune childhood. I think like for us, when I was a kid, coming to like Kalyani Nagar and Koregaon Park and stuff was like, I don't know, just like another lifetime away. It was like a whole other city.
Yeah,
I had some
it was quite
grandparents who lived
far.
there. It was, and it was so green and so like forest like
Empty.
yeah, it was empty and
It was so
um
empty.
yeah, like so where like all the Western and stuff is right now. There used to
Yeah.
be these like really nice restaurants along the river.
Yeah.
But it was like a forest around there, like it was literally, it was so quiet. You could like hear like birds and animals and everything around, and you had to have like shitloads of kachua chap everywhere because there were that many mosquitoes, and it was a different city actually. It was a completely different city.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I grew up there. I went to boarding school. In After the eighth standard, I chose to go to a boarding school in Kodaikanal.
Oh
So
wow.
so I did from the ninth to the 12th. I was in a boarding school, which was pretty fun. Um, I definitely one of the decisions that I will never regret. Also taught me a lot, obviously, but yeah, it was a great experience. Made some amazing friends and had some crazy times, I guess. And then I went to college in the UK, so I spent a lot of time there. Um, about 6 years from when I was
Yeah.
18 to I think around 24 or something.
It's a
Um,
long time.
yeah, it was. It was. It was one of the reasons that I chose to come back. It had just been a really long time since I'd spent, time at home with my family, for
Yeah.
example. And I grew up in a joint family, so I was like very close to my grandparents. And they were getting old, so I kind of wanted to come back. But yeah, and then I moved
So
back and I decided to start Lost the Plot, and that's about it.
I would like to come to that. Before we do, you transitioned from. We actually have a question that someone sent in,
Oh
who
yeah,
wanted to know because they saw that you transitioned from international relations to law.
yeah, yes.
So they went like, okay, this is exactly what I want to do.
Mm.
So they wanted to know what the transition was like and whether you have any universities to recommend.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I, had kind of the opportunity to, and also the grades to get into some pretty good schools. So I did my IR at the University of St. Andrews in Scotland. It's considered like, at least when I went to school, it was really considered a great school for IR, and we had amazing professors with some incredible, like, not just amounts of knowledge, but like real experience, in the world. Um, and the thing is that IR is like, it's a very broad subject. So it's
Yeah.
a great, I mean, I thought it was just like a wonderful grounding for just kind of understanding the world, like it really broadens your perspective because it's essentially the relations between countries, in like a
Yeah.
really basic format. That's essentially what it is. It's how countries interact with each other, and but because that itself is such a large concept, there are so many things to break down, like what is a country, for example.
Yeah.
Right from there to so there's a lot that you can kind of explore, and it really helps you, uh, yeah, just kind of like understand the world better, I thought. Um, but I think like the reason that I decided to go into law after was because I did come out of it feeling a bit like, okay, but like where are my tools? Like what
Yeah.
do I do with all this knowledge? And I I thought that law would kind of give me those tools, which of course it did. And I had already kind of been interested in the legal space, and I love arguing with people. So I thought that might work in my favor.
Uh,
Uh,
what's that
Hello?
noise? I think that noise would be my fan because the motor's gotten
Yeah.
spoiled and no one's coming to.
Oh shit. It's possibly my fan too, to be honest.
Yeah, I think
Maybe.
it's one of our fans.
Yeah,
Maybe you're a fan of ours. Sorry.
yeah.
Hmm.
Should I
Huh.
try like switching
So
it off or something? I could, but then I'll be like
we could,
dying
but
in
we won't we
sweat.
sweat?
Yeah, it's really
Yeah,
hot,
no, I'm
guys.
not
I'm
doing
in
that.
Bombay.
We
It's
can
very,
hear
very
each other,
hot.
y'all. You can
Yeah.
do this.
Yeah,
You're
guys,
just a
tune
sweat.
out the white noise. These are like skills for the 21st century. Tune out white noise.
Yeah,
There's going to
that's
be a lot of
perfect.
it.
So yes,
But
the transition to law.
yeah. So then I did this transition to law, and the thing is that it was like I found a course basically that worked for me. It gave me like a full law degree in 2 years instead of three. In the UK, I went to City Law School in London, and I think that so it really worked. It was a great course. It was a lot of work because obviously it was compressing 3 years into two. So there was a
Yeah.
lot going on, and I very much enjoyed studying law. Genuinely, like, but also like I think I just enjoy studying. I know that's a
Yeah.
really uncool thing to say, especially out loud, but
No, it's not. I didn't study.
but I really like to study, a bit nerdy like that.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, I had a great time. I had a great experience in London. My classmates were amazing. Law itself was really cool. Again, though, it took me like at least like one semester to kind of get into it because it's like you're learning a new language. That's kind of what the law is. You have to understand the grammar before you can kind of start using a language. And it's the exact same thing with law. Like you have to kind of just understand its grammar, where it comes from, and a lot of that doesn't mean you have to get into theory. But until you have that, you can't really crack it. So I did that, and that was great. Very much enjoyed the grammar part of it. But I wanted to, that transition actually was very seamless. I mean, um, I think it's a very natural transition, to be honest, because the grounding that you get, in a course like IR is huge. And then when you kind of learn law as a tool, you have so many options open to you, and the legal space is like completely. I mean, it's so intricate. There's so much opportunity. Um, there can be huge impacts, that you can create. And basically, the two subjects are like, they're like learning two different languages that will help you deal with the world.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I agree.
yeah. So for someone, and especially if you want to practice as a lawyer, it's great. I mean, I decided a little early on that wasn't for me, but if you do intend to practice as a lawyer, go for it.
Okay. Now, coming to Lost the Plot. So, could you tell our listeners a little more about what Lost the Plot is about, how you ended up starting it, and we take it
Yeah.
forward?
Yeah, sure. So basically, when I was studying law, I there was a large chunk of it that was focused on copyright law, and it just so happened that around that time, all these outdoor screenings and like rooftop things and just open air screenings became a really big thing that summer in London, and of course, being the UK, it's a summer activity because like 10 months of the year the weather is awful. So it became like, all outdoor things happen at once. And it was wonderful. I love, I've always loved the movies, but very much, on an audience footing earlier. And actually that's one of the things I'm trying not to lose as I get into the more business side of stuff. But yeah, so I started kind of like exploring this idea of what about creating this experience in India. By that time I was fairly certain that I wanted to move back, and that was of course for like my own reasons, having been at home and all of that. And um, I didn't want to, and like India was like there was so much happening back then, and I was like, what am I doing here? Like this feels a little stagnant, and what am I doing here? I should be back home where there's a lot more happening. I don't know, maybe it's like the grass always greener or whatever. But yeah, so I thought, how about taking this experience back home? And so, of course, the first thing I started doing was looking into like, how do you get the licenses to screen films publicly? For anybody looking to do public screenings, which
Yeah.
essentially means that it's a screening outside of a private film. Um, uh, if you need a permission and license from the person who holds the copyright. And there's a whole system developed around this of intellectual property law. Um, and I started looking into that, and then I realized like that there is huge opportunity, in the distribution space in India, and there are all these like intricate, interconnected reasons why, why we don't see a lot of non-Bollywood content in India. Of course, this was in like 2014, so there was no Netflix in India at that point, and
Yeah.
it really only had theatrical view, and that was like all, like sorry.
Yeah.
But so I started discovering a lot of these like intricate things that govern the film industry, from the back end, and how and why it is not good content isn't able to reach us, or how the whole, for example, how the whole theatrical model even works, like as a business model. So there was a lot that I was learning in that period, and I wanted to disrupt it. There was like really no other reason apart from that. And I wanted to kind of create this like nice outdoor cinema experience. And at that point, I was honestly only looking at it as an experiment. So I was kind of like thinking about it in terms of Pune having amazing weather, and like
Yeah.
let's try this there. So and having amazing weather for like 8 months of the year, pretty much.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I was kind of still looking at it as an experiment, and but yeah, I thought that I would sort of come home and try this, and I felt that maybe the business side of things would also be more creative, which was something that I had felt missing while studying law. So yeah, that's how that happened.
That's pretty cool. I remember when I met you for the first time also, it was through your cousins because I know them through school.
Yeah, yeah.
And I remember hearing about you from my seniors. I don't know. There was a bunch of friends of mine, like, I don't know if you, I don't know if I can take their names right now. Bunch of seniors of mine from school, and they go like, "Oh, Nikita's starting this whole thing. It's called Lost the Plot," and it was this entire concept that Pune had never heard of, and I don't think that anybody else around the country was doing it either, were they?
Yeah, I mean, not at that time. That was the first kind of like outdoor, or definitely the first rooftop cinema experience
Yeah,
that India had ever seen. I think there have been a couple of like drive-ins and those old school, but that was like I believe in like there was one in the 80s in Bombay, and there's one in Ahmedabad which is still running super successfully since the 1970s. It's crazy. But there was no like really like concept around film screenings as events or in non-casual spaces, and that ties actually back to the whole distribution angle of things. The reason I think that those things didn't exist in India was because that stream of licensing, I would say more
yeah,
licensing than distribution, but yeah, that stream of distribution has never existed in India, where um, you know, you can officially get a license from a rights holder for screening in an alternate space. Um, it exists everywhere in the West. And the way that copyright works is that, the world is divided into different territories, and you can kind of sell and buy rights based on territory, or maybe for a large
yeah,
chunk of territory, or a specific country, or there are a lot of like combinations like that. But in the West, it exists. It's called non-theatrical exhibition. So
hmm,
it basically means all the exhibition space, which means essentially spaces where screenings are happening, that are not a theater.
right.
Because yeah, so that didn't exist here in India, and that was like the thing that I wanted to kind of. That was what I decided that maybe I could, um, you know, do, or kind of see and
So
saw an
how
opportunity
does it
for.
so how does it feel to pioneer something like that? Because now rooftop cinema is something that I see all around. So how do you feel to be the first one to do it in the country?
Uh, Honestly, at the time, it was really scary.
Right.
I
But
didn't
did
really
you
know like
realize
how to
that
deal with it.
you were pioneering something like that?
I think I did, but I didn't really like understand the gravity of it at the time. Definitely, and also, I think I kind of romanticized it a bit, which is of course what you need to start something. But
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I think I didn't understand like definitely the gravity of it at that point. I'm still not sure I do, to be honest. But I also what I didn't expect was that things would move so quickly. I wasn't expecting kind of like distributors and even major studios to be as uh, open as they were to give us the rights to screen their films. Of course, we're paying for all of this because that's the heart of copyright. So, but like all the screenings that we've done at Lost Plot have been legally licensed right from the start. So, that part of it, I just did like on a whim. I kind of spent 6 months writing to like every studio under the sun and like whatever website that had a contact tag that belonged to some studio. I just like wrote to them, and then one studio decided to write back in the 6 months, which is amazing because they really like. I mean, that was a big deal in itself, and then it was a lot of follow up. It was a lot of reaching out to people and kind of telling them that this is what we want to do, and so like there was a lot of kind of uncertainty and work. So um, yeah, I didn't really feel like I was pioneering something as such. It's quite a lot of uncertainty.
So, was there a studio where you thought okay, I probably am not going to get a response out of this, but you actually got one and you were shocked? Did that
I
ever
was
happen?
pretty sure I was not going to get a response from any of the people, but I still wrote. Like I was not expecting a response at all, like at all, honestly. I was like, I wonder how. I was like, I wonder what happens if you like write to Miramat, just like as a random person. I
Yeah,
wonder
did
what
Mira Mac
happens.
reply?
No, Miramat never replied. We have access to their content though, but they never reply.
Oh,
So
okay.
yeah, this is sad. But but yeah, so but one studio did reply, and then they put me in touch with a couple of distributors who um, had access to the India territory, because that also happens. Like different rights go to different distributors for particular territories. So I had
Yeah.
to find one who could give us licenses for India specifically. And I think what happens is that once the thing is that all of copyright is dependent on a contract that you sign. So, so all terms and conditions are varied. But yeah, so then I finally managed to find a distributor in that case. I also found that there was a huge amount of independent films in India, who were just dying for spaces to screen movies. So that was kind of like my second strategy. In terms of getting
Right.
content to screen, writing to all the indie people here, because I was 100% sure that nobody in Bollywood would definitely respond. And I didn't know anyone in any film space. So, yeah.
Right. So we have someone just said something, and I think it's gone all the way up there. Okay, yeah. A witty, smart, intelligent, passionate, cinema lover, entrepreneur, running out of adjectives to describe Nikita. So, Nikita, I want to ask you this. Other than all of this, how would you describe your work and your field of work and yourself in 3 adjectives?
The adjectives.
Yeah.
Field of work. Um, Field of work. Complicated. That's
Hmm.
definitely there. Complicated. Uh, Very rewarding. I found it to be very rewarding. A lot of fun. I mean, it's the movies. A lot of fun.
Yeah, I'm sure.
That's a big part of kind of why I do this. So, yeah, it's a lot of fun. It matches like my nerdy side to like my kind of random side. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I think that's pretty
So
much
then it
why it
fits
works.
somehow.
There's a lot of like admin stuff, which I kind of secretly enjoy. So,
Yeah.
yeah, it works for me.
Oh, I'm glad. How did you come up with the name Lost the Plot?
How did you? So it was just random. It took like a whole day and a half of talking about it. Um, so I started doing all of this research while I was still in London, and my my best friend from college, St. Anne's, Lily, she also moved to London with me. So we, by this point, had known each other for 6 years. Um, hello, hi, Julian. Um, and so she was kind of like my sounding board. A lot of the initial parts of it, and she had some experience in film, some other an actress in Germany, and so we talked a lot, and basically I was just bouncing off all these ideas around her, and she came to spend the day with me, and then we just started talking, and we were just talking about how this could go and where it could go, and I was like, I want to. There were there were a few other options that came, and I was like, because I wanted to also do something where we screen these like, cult classics that I grew up on, and like I grew up on a lot of Hollywood, I really did.
Yeah.
So I wanted to kind of bring those things back and um, uh, like add a sense of nostalgia. So I knew that it was going to be something which needs to appeal to an urban and east and west kind of audience. And then at the same time, I wanted it to be something fun. And so we basically just spent the whole day walking around, sitting in our apartment, talking, walking around London. And we had wanted to go and check out this one speakeasy bar, which actually existed in a breakfast place, like it's like a breakfast restaurant. And every time we had gone there before that, it was like, man, it's full. Because also the speakeasy had like 4 tables. So,
Yeah.
it was always full. And like it was cool because if you went there just for breakfast, you wouldn't know there's a bar underneath. Because the
Yeah.
access to the bar was inside this giant fridge
Oh,
door.
wow.
So we were like, okay, let's go. And it was like a random weekday. So it was like a Monday. So we went there and, then we just kind of came up with it. Like, we just talked about it a lot. I wanted it to be something that, like, would be catchy and, some people might know it because in my childhood, like, this idea of have you lost the plot, it's like a very old phrase, like, it's like, it means have you lost it? Have you gone mad?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
in Marathi is like Khatakle ka, like what?
Yeah.
So it just felt right at that point. And I was like, I'm curious to see how many people no one remember this face. So how about like we try it? So that was pretty much it.
That's pretty cool. Someone just asked, how was studying in Scotland and how was it different than London?
Oh, how was studying in Scotland? It was great. I went to a very small town though. St. Andrews is tiny, like 3 streets. And to be honest, I wanted to go there specifically. I specifically wanted to go to a small place because I have gone to boarding school in a really small place. Like Kodaikanal is also tiny,
Yeah.
and Pune, at least till that point, was not really that big
Was
of a
time.
city. Yeah,
Yeah.
it
I hate how
and
it's growing. I can't deal with it. It breaks my heart.
yeah, it's interesting. It's a strange place to be. I think. But anyway, so I wanted to go to a small place. I did not want to go to a city. I was very sure of that. So actually, I didn't even apply to any colleges in London. My dad was pretty keen that I stay in the UK because he wanted, he was like, you'll have access to Europe, so that's amazing. And at the time, I really fought with him about this because all my friends are
Yeah.
going to the States, um, but I'm very glad that that's part of the decision for me. And Scotland is beautiful. It's so different. I was in a really tiny town, so I got to see a lot of the countryside.
Yeah.
The village, St. Andrews, has a beach, so it's freezing. So it's not like you can like sunbathe or go swimming or anything. It's freezing. The
Yeah.
water is the North Sea, so it's like it goes to the North Pole. But it's just nice to have the sea around. So yeah, so it was really nice. And then London was great. It was like a big city. Initially, I was a bit afraid of it. I think it's just I wasn't used to being in a big city.
Yeah.
So initially it
Was
was a
it the
bit
rush
lonely,
that scared
but
you?
it was just a bit lonely actually. I didn't know that
Ah,
many people at that point. And
right.
yeah, yeah. But it's okay. As soon as my law classes started and, I started kind of making friends. It was great. At that point, it was a really fun city. It's like there's so much to explore, and like public transport there is incredible. So I
Yeah.
basically just lived on that. It makes you really independent. At the same time, the first zone one and zone two are like very easy to navigate, even on a walking or on a cycle or something, which is what I had. So it was fun.
That's cool. I have a few questions that I put out, and some people asked some of them, and
Let's
about what they wanted to ask you about licensing
What?
and screening. For those of you who just joined, I am talking to Nikita Naiknavare. She is the founder of Lost the Plot, and this is take 15 of Stories with Shastri. And so someone asked, what is the process of getting the license to screen a film involve?
Okay. So, like I said, all of copyright law and a lot of intellectual property law gets in contract. So, the individual terms and conditions will depend on what you sign on that contract. Also, I just want to put it out there, this is not a replacement for legal advice. If you have something specific that you want to apply this to, I would really recommend you take actual legal advice and discuss in detail. This is just me kind of sharing experience.
Please note that nothing that is said on this is meant to be construed as legal advice. I'm going to say that as the person doing this.
Thank you. This is very well
nothing
said
either of us
disclaimer.
say.
Yeah.
Just because she's a lawyer doesn't mean she's giving you advice right now.
Yeah.
You're not here. This is a WhatsApp call and you're eavesdropping. That's what's happening right now.
Yeah. So what it involves is essentially finding out who owns the right and then who is their representative for your segment. So when a film's copyrights are sold, they're sold for different sectors, which essentially means the avenue in which you're going to show the film. So, it has the traditional and the oldest sector is, of course, the theatrical sector. So that's your theater, regular single screen, multiplex theaters. Then with technology evolving and TV entering the picture, you had satellite rights, which is essentially all your cable TV channels, broadcasting. So that I think was there for a while, and then pretty quickly soon, when home entertainment first came into the picture in the format of VCR. Yes, not OTT, VCR, not Netflix. So that was a whole segment of sector called the home entertainment sector, where basically the film goes into living rooms, into homes. So that went from VCR to CDs to DVDs, to that's it. And then for a long period of time, it was just DVDs until Netflix sort of, and then there were variations of within these. But then it's and now we have OTT, which is over the top streaming, which is essentially our Netflix service.
Yeah, your Amazon Prime and all.
So interestingly, what sort of happened is that when in the 70s and the 80s, when it was just about 80s, 90s rather, you had VCRs and DVDs, especially when DVDs and Blu-rays came in the picture. Obviously, that's also the internet boom. So this is when piracy takes off, right? Because you can essentially take something on a disc and put it on the internet for free. And you had people doing this because, movies are so crazy. They spawn more and more and more access to film.
Yeah, they'll do anything to get the
anything.
version.
I know that kind of passion that exists out there. But so what that does is that it kind of harms the ecosystem. Yes, I mean, maybe it doesn't per se harm a studio because studios have big money and all of that. But what it does is it creates a really imbalanced ecosystem where you have to kind of where producers start thinking that oh shit, I gotta make something which is gonna make me money quick, only in the theater and maybe TV space. Because as soon as you put it on a DVD, it's going to get pirated and lost. forever. There's no money coming back from it. So I can only now, so I should probably make content which is going to make a big noise, in the cable space, and then eventually go to TV. But yeah, so it kind of like changes the thinking in the ecosystem. And what happens is it's always the independent art that suffers, right? If the ecosystem is not the circle's broken somewhere in the middle, it's the indie film that suffers most because anyway there'll be lesser risk takers on them. Just because
I feel like the
something
circle is
independent
aligned somewhere in the middle.
yeah, exactly. So it's independent, it's not, risk. It's a bigger risk. So so that's kind of what happens in the thing in that space. So essentially, if you want to start your own streaming, you have to figure out which sector you want to do it in. If you want to just host an event, so basically now where were we? We were at OTT, which is Netflix and stuff, and then you have just on ground screenings which are not outside your house. And that's the non-theatrical sector that, Lost the Plot kind of represents and also exploits to host our screening. So any kind of event that is happening around the screening, any kind of screening event that is happening, is in this sector, which essentially allows you to use a DVD or a Blu-ray, but for a public show by paying an additional license. So yeah, so you need that.
Okay, so someone asked, another question that someone asked actually was that do private non-commercial screenings for a large gathering require any licenses or permission?
Private, I mean, I suppose if it's in your home.
No, large gathering, right? So large gathering will probably constitute.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure about that, to be honest. It would need to be decided on a case-by-case basis. I know that some groups have sort of taken, there's a format where you take donations for like living room shows. I think it happens in the live music scene a lot, where you have these smaller scale shows, living room shows that happen and then you take donations. I think that's fine there because, the artist is there and the donations are going to the artist. But if you're taking these donations for a film where the copyright holder is not getting any part of this donation,
any royalty,
then that's wrong. Yeah, if it's for a filmmaker you hosted and they're there or they've given you permission, then I don't like that's the thing, right? Then you have the filmmaker's permission, so you have the copyright holder authority to host the screen. So yeah, that's kind of the difference. I don't know if I answered that question.
I think you did. I mean, to whatever extent we could have. We have another question that someone asked. What are do's and don'ts for first-time producers in terms of licensing for various things or for low-budget movies and stuff like that, and pitching to OTT platforms?
Oh my god. So I would I've never produced anything, right? I'm very much in the exhibition and distribution space. So I can probably answer those questions much better. But for the production side, there are a bunch of lives happening. Actually, Lost the Plot did an Instagram live with a film producer and distributor, Sheila Bora. He's supported a lot of independent films. He's one of the chief producers of films like Matan and Newton. So we had a great discussion with him about this whole space, about what are the options for visibility for indie films, what are the options for producers pitching to OTT, how does the distribution space work. So anybody who wants to know that in more detail, you can go to the Lost the Plot IGTV and find it there. But from my side, I would say that as a first time producer, don't be too quick to kind of sell your rights. Because also as a first time producer, you should be thinking about sort of making your mark, because the whole film industry is very much, um, you need to have a certain repertoire of work for people to take it seriously, And if this is your very first film, I would sort of suggest that don't sell your rights off immediately. It's very important to think about like what kind of film you're making and where is this audience primarily. That's one of the main things. You need to figure out what is the channel that you want your film to be seen on. And yeah, of course, for everyone, the obvious answer is like everywhere. You want
Yeah.
everyone to see it everywhere. Of course, you made it some passion. But that's not true and that's not beneficial. So you need to put in the research to figure out where your audience is, especially as a producer, and what is the best avenue to get your film to that audience. So whether it's polls or social media or putting out, survey on your friends, I don't know. There are many ways. Like I basically starting an Instagram page and seeing how many people like it and where they're from, and there's all kinds of insights that social media gives you. So that's really important. For you to kind of make that connect and then think about which is the best platform and company running a platform for myself. So, but you really need to think about your film and where the audience is for before rushing to sell your rights to someone. Don't do that.
I didn't hear what you said last. You got cut off from my
Oh,
side.
I said don't do that. Don't rush to sell your rights to anyone.
No, yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
I think it makes a lot more sense to protect your rights for anybody, whether you're a creator or you're a producer or a creator.
And get
I would
legal
never
advice on the
recommend that.
contracts that you eventually sign.
Yes.
Definitely get legal
Be smart
advice.
about
Get
your
someone,
contracts. Protect.
get someone to go through it with like, a toothpick.
The amount of times I've realized I've done such a great job with any contract that I'll pat my back for 20-year-old Sanghamitra being a smart cookie. So it works.
Yeah, it's very
So
important.
speaking of making a mark, what is it? I don't know if you have if what the gender ratio is in the exhibition and distribution space and the screening space. So what is it like to be a woman in that particular industry? Because I don't know anything about it.
So I mean, the thing is that it's a very male dominated world. The whole distribution and sales angle of it, just very much is. It's because I think in some ways, a lot of it is down to negotiation. How much can you negotiate the value of the film and how much for? So it's a very sort of like hard, like cash conversation kind of thing. I think it's of course becoming a lot more professional now, and especially as more and more production houses are becoming very professional, very like up to Western standards. Everyone has their own like legal teams and everything. That's happening in India a lot. So in the larger teams, there are definitely more women that I interact with. There are a lot of I've interacted with a lot of women from the studio space. So for example, with Warner Brothers or Disney or anything like that. Like I've mostly interacted with women there in the corporate world. But in the indie, like I mean, to be honest, there isn't that much of a space. Like with amongst like the independently running distribution companies that I deal with, it's mostly been all men. And it's been all right. I mean, I don't know. I tend to kind of think of like the positives a lot. So, for example, I think one thing that kind of works for me, and I don't know if this is a gender thing, but people think I'm really young. Like they think I'm younger than I am, and that works.
I thought you were younger.
Sometimes. Yeah, it works for me sometimes. I kind of have learned to make that work for me. So I mean, I try not to think of what I'm doing in like large sort of in, like like the whole defining it way. I think it's also that like there are so many things. It's not just whether it's a difficulty I've had or where it's happened that people don't take me seriously, maybe because I look
Yeah.
young. But the thing is that there are so many things in there, right? Maybe it's because I look young. Maybe it's because I'm a girl. But it could also be that I have like very little experience in this space. I've not
Yeah.
worked with any corporate before. They have not. I've not sort of approached them through a network. And those are all very common aspects of business, especially in India. You know, all of these things, like the business world is like a very networking like kind of a world. So it 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 could be any of those reasons. So I try not to attribute it to any one thing, um, but rather just kind of learn from that experience or that engagement, whether it's worked out for me or not. Because there's always something to learn, and there's always some little nugget of knowledge that will get slipped your way, and you don't want to forget that. So I try not to think too much about, why that happened, or it could be any one of these things, and these things are not in my control. So there's no point in blaming them. It's kind of the
Right.
approach that I take. Yeah.
You have a point. Someone just asked, what are the challenges you are facing in scaling up Lost the Plot?
Oh, so to be honest, like the last 5 years that I've been running this, it has gone through many different business models. It has not existed as the one single business model, and that's because I wanted to try different things. I wanted to try every aspect of the space that I'm sort of getting into. Also
Yeah.
because I had the opportunity to, it's not just like I decided I want to try it. The opportunity presented itself, so I was like, let me do this. So let me choose this way rather. So so in terms of scaling it up, I wanted to understand every part of the puzzle before I thought about what aspect to scale up with. And I don't
Yeah.
know, I like trying things for myself. I've always
Yeah.
been like that. I've been like that since I was like 5. So, I want to try things myself. So that's probably why it's taken a little bit longer. I also didn't want to really, and I wanted to understand the space so much, much better. And so so if there is one major challenge, I would actually attribute it to this itself, where I spent all this time not picking a particular way of doing things. But now that we sort of have, we've got to a point that I wanted to be at. Let's see, it's only been a year or
Yeah.
2 years, a year and a half since we've been in this whole film distribution and licensing space. And I think there's a lot more scope in it. It's more interesting work for me. Let's see. I
Do you
think
think
we'll scale now.
OTTs have affected? Do you think OTTs have affected what you do as a licensing and
Oh,
streaming
definitely.
organization?
I think OTTs have affected everyone. OTTs have changed our lives, basically. But definitely, it's been an interesting thing to see actually the rise of OTTs because
Yeah,
uh,
it boomed suddenly.
yeah, it is, and the thing is that I really admire it for the whole sector actually for uh, filling that niche, that problem of
Mm,
convenience. I don't know if it's a problem, but that's for a different debate. But they saw a great opportunity and they went for it, and it's just like the same niche and sort of need that things like Swiggy solves, right? But they
yeah,
bring it straight to your hand. It's so convenient. Food is so convenient, and films are so convenient. So from that point of view, and you have so many options. So options also expand, right? So from that
yeah,
point of view, I think sure it might make like some elements of what we're trying to do in terms of building communities outside in a public space a little bit harder because oftentimes you may not be able to give them that feeling of discovery because something is already on an OTT platform,
Yeah.
So definitely that was something, and that was actually something that I was really worried about initially when like OTT came and Netflix started came to India. I used to get very stressed out about it and stuff. But I'm now learning to see it in a very different light. I think that we could actually be partners because with the OTT space because I see how saturated it is. People have
Yeah.
no idea what to watch. It's more difficult. Even like as I said, audience
Yeah.
And so I think
I
like from
lost
the
you.
duration point of view, hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, I got you back. Yes.
Okay, cool. So
You were
I think
saying.
from that point of view, I think that what we do and the kind of communications we put out would really help with the OTT space, and it kind of like is nice because it really keeps me in touch with what it feels like as an audience to watch a film rather than always thinking about how to draw people to this film. Instead of that whole feeling of oh god, now I have to explain why this film is wonderful, So so that's been kind of nice. And also what I realized is that it increases the focus on that one screening when people do step out.
Yeah.
When you do go out for a movie, that experience has to be for something amazing. So I'm hoping that it will help me focus more on the content side of things, maybe the indie content side of things, or maybe the experience side of things, because it gives you the opportunity to make that experience something really
Different.
wow. Yeah.
So we have another question asking you, where do you see yourself a few years from now professionally, and what are the 3 things you cannot live without?
Oh wow. It's Sahil, no?
Who is this person asking all these cool questions? Why did I not think of this?
He's a really smart guy.
Okay.
That's why he asked us good questions. He's
Hello,
a
Nikita's
cinematographer and
friend.
a photographer. Yeah, you should check out his
Oh,
page.
wow.
It's beautiful
I will.
photographs, and he works a lot on film.
I will. I would love to have you on board.
Yeah. Okay. So three things I cannot live without. Film. Definitely film. What else? I guess my friends. I don't know.
Your what?
My friends, I guess, friends and
Oh, I
family.
thought you said your specs. I
No.
don't know. I
Oh,
can
that is
I
like
can
from a
be
very
sure.
practical point of view. I
Yeah.
can't because I can't see without them.
Really? That's
there's
bad.
no. I mean, like I can't see far. So, like when I'm in Pune, I drive everywhere. I can't drive without my spectacles. That's a health hazard for the road. So,
Yeah, you see me in public, I have specs too, so I'm always squinting and everybody thinks I'm just upset. And then when I can't, it's just that I can't see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's so frustrating because I'm just like now all my senses are trying to focus on that one sense of screen. So this is very annoying.
Okay. Okay, what else?
But yeah, I guess the movies and the facts and what else? God, honestly, I really don't know. There are so many things that I can't live without. This whole quarantine has made me realize that pretty much all of my hobbies and most of my work is considered non-essential. So it's been like a very,
That must have been an eye opener, no?
it has become an eye opener for sure. It definitely has been an eye opener. I've very much enjoyed this.
Yeah,
Whole
same.
quarantine. Yeah, it's been great.
Contrary to popular opinion, but still.
Yeah, of course, it's not been easy, but it has been pretty great in terms of
I feel
realizing
like
that.
I feel like even easy comes from like a place of like whether or not we think it's easy or not comes from a place of privilege. I have never realized how
totally.
privileged I was before this.
Totally.
I mean, I knew it, but I never realized it. It's a world of a difference. Okay.
Yeah.
So where do you see yourself a few years from now professionally?
So professionally. So actually, I'm sort of hoping to do the similar things to what I'm doing now. I just hope that I'll be running a bigger outfit. I don't want to turn this into a huge company, to be honest. I like compact outfits, like compact, efficient
Yeah.
outfits, where you can really like trust someone and you can like, yeah. So I also don't enjoy like hierarchy at all because I'm I find it very difficult to answer to people. So I would rather run like something that's a very horizontal, compact kind of an outfit. So I hope that I would be doing that. I hope that I would have been um, involved with the making of films more. Definitely.
Right.
I think right now is actually where I'm feeling that whole thing again of, okay, now I feel like I need to learn a different skill set. You know, I want tools to do something
Yeah.
more. And actually through the quarantine, I did this really amazing assistant direction course, and it was
Oh,
super
nice.
hands-on. Yeah, a friend of mine who works in the industry, he's running it. He's actually doing his last batch right now, a new batch. That's going to be the last one, and I highly recommend it to anybody who wants to sort of understand what it is to be a director. I mean, what is the job of the director? You know, like it's
Yeah.
a very hands-on, practical course, and you'll really understand like uh, the like actual skill set sort of that you need to be an assistant director. What makes the machinery move? You know, what makes
Yeah.
the machinery? It's all these people that are doing actual tangible jobs on set, and so it was great. So I'm really excited about that though. I'm excited to be like kind of putting myself out there a little bit in terms of the filmmaking side.
That sounds pretty cool, and that brings us to the end of this episode. And one last question though: what's the coolest indie movie you have seen recently? Indian indie movie.
Um, Indian indie. So, I watched a very interesting movie last month on movie called Catfish.
Okay.
Um, it's a Bengali film and it's about the really like the bottom rung of um, drug addiction, basically, in Cal. And like, like the very seedy kind of what we assume is very seedy world.
Yeah.
And it wasn't an easy watch, to be honest, while watching it. And I think there are a lot of polarized opinions out there about the film, but it was just beautifully shot. It's all black and white, and some of the things, the way they were staged, was really, really moving. It's one of the films that I thought about a lot more after I watched it.
Right. That happens.
Rather than So that was a very interesting experience. And another great independent film I watched was Kamyab. That's on Netflix.
What's it called?
Kamyab. That was
Kamyab.
fun.
I want to watch that. I
Yeah,
want to
that
watch
was a
that,
fun movie.
but I'll also watch this one. Thank you for coming on board. This was so
Thank
much
you for
fun.
having me.
You were lovely, and I hope you get everything you want out of Lost the Plot. I hope you finally go and make that film of yours. And I hope people now finally stop looking at it as the fun film page on Instagram. So, eventually.
Well, we want to
Okay.
do that too. But yeah, thank you,
Also,
Sanghamitra.
see you. Bye.
Bye.